The Breeders' Cup Turf is a grade one. It's the seventh race on the Saturday card. It's running a mile and a half on turf, and it is a three-turn race at Del Mar. Important to note that. And this, I'll tell you, I think this is one of the toughest races on the card without a doubt. You've got some very prominent European shippers in Emily Upjohn, big time filly last year, not so much this year. Luxembourg, who has the unique distinction of winning a grade one at 2, 3, 4, and 5. You got JRB, and that is the correct way to pronounce it. I've heard a lot of different ones, but this is a 3 year old who is on the upswing and coming off a nice gate to wire victory. Rebels Romance, of course, who won this race a couple of years ago. Wingspan, a 3 year old for Aidan O'Brien. They're wheeling back pretty quickly. And then we've got a couple of Japanese imports, Rushan Park and Shariar, who finished third in this race last year. So it is a very interesting field. The Americans, I don't know, we don't really have a whole lot to offer, with the exception of perhaps Far Bridge, in my opinion. But we'll take a look at them one at a time. Rushan Park, apparently the Clocker reports have said that he's looking pretty good and he's training well. But the thing is, if you look at his PPs, when he's migrated up to the grade one level, he has not been terribly successful. And that's really what I'm banking on. Of course, it's hard to tell with the Japanese, but you got Christophe Lemaire in the irons. I have a feeling this one might be prominent early. And sometimes in those 3 furlong or 3 turn races, at a mile and a half in the States anyway, that's a good place to be. So Rushan Park, I'm probably not going to use, but I wouldn't talk anybody out of throwing Rushan Park in at 20 to 1 on a flyer. Emily Upjohn is a horse with, she has just a stellar record, but at 3 years, that was at 3. This year, not so good. She has yet to win a race, and that's what the asterisk means by her record. She's been in really good company. Blue Stocking and Aventure finished first and second in the Prix Vermeil, and they finished first and second in the Arc de Triomphe. She's got plenty of back class. She hasn't embarrassed herself by any means. She just hasn't won. This is a horse with, obvious talent. It's just been kind of a frustrating year, and I'm just not sure I'm real excited about taking her at 5 to 1 in this race. So Emily Upjohn, I think, is one that you can use comfortably, but I do sense some vulnerability with her the way she's been running this year. It's hard to underestimate John and Thady Gosden. Usually, if they bring a horse over, they mean business, and they usually do really well. So I think Emily Upjohn is one. Again, for the price, not too keen, but I think you can use comfortably in this field. Shariar hasn't won in 2 years, but did finish third in this race last year. And this one does have some back class. It finished fifth in her last race, but that was in August. And, the Japanese love to put horses into races after long layoffs. And I kind of like this one in this spot, mainly for no other reason than that he's fresh and he's a grade one performer. And as we go further down the line, I think you'll see why he makes more sense to me. He'll be coming late, and I think there's enough horses on the front end here to ensure that the pace won't be dawdling. So he'll probably have a pretty good setup. Luxembourg, again, is a horse. Aidan O'Brien has been. I've seen interviews with him where he has sort of touted Luxembourg as a horse who's ready to roll in this race. This is a really nice horse with a ton of back class, but you do see his last effort in the Irish Champion Stakes left a little bit to be desired, as well as the King George VI and Queen Elizabeth. He's too classy to me to overlook. I think he's another one who's going to be prominent on the front end. And I think is one that you can comfortably use, especially at 12 to 1. I really like that price. And he's got an outside shot at taking this one down. JRB is a 3 year old, and that gives a little bit of pause in races like this. But this is the kind of year where a 3-year-old could very well win this because there's a lot of vulnerability. And as we go further down the line, you'll see what I'm referring to. Brian Meehan is a trainer who's known when he ships into these type of races, his horses really bring it. And this one's coming off a nice gate to wire win. I've heard some pundits talk about him, and they said that this is a horse who's ready to run a big one. So the form is very good, and that to me is the defining characteristic of this race: is finding horses who are in really good form. I don't like 4-1. I was hoping to get a lot better price with JRB, but I think this is one who's certainly a win candidate and definitely one that you want to use. Will be prominent up on the front end. Far Bridge, to me, is the best American hope to factor in this race. I like this horse. I've always liked him. He really seems to have come into his own in the last couple of races. The Turf Classic, or the Sword Dancer in particular, was just a masterful ride by Joel Rosario. Just got the jump on measured time in Silver Knot. And he just seems to be in really good form right now. And again, because he is, I don't like 6-1 in this field, but I think that he's because he's in good form. I think you can use him. I think under is probably more likely, but he's and I it's a little prohibitive. I mean, I could even see leaving off just because the price is too short. But I just like the way this horse is coming into the race, and so I'm going to use probably for underneath. Grand Sonata, this is a horse who, frankly, I've never been a fan of. He just is a perennial disappointment. You keep waiting for him to run a good race, and he just never seems to. Now, at Kentucky Downs in the Turf Cup, he got the rail, he got the trip, and he got up in time. But to me, it wasn't a race that tells me that he's going to blow this field away or going to run well. And I just have a feeling because you're elevating him in class again that he's probably going to run something more like the Sword Dancer, where he was never in the race at all. This is the kind of horse that, I guess his form is okay, but it's just the way he continually disappoints. You can't get excited about him, and I'm gonna cut him. Cabo Spirit got in this race by winning the John Henry Turf Championship. That was about as bad a turf race as you could get. Went wire to wire, and nobody put any pressure on this horse, was allowed to basically walk on the front end. And this horse just isn't good enough, not fast enough, not good. Cut. El Enseñal, same thing. I mean, ran in a really bad turf race and didn't factor in it at all. And this horse just isn't good enough, and really stunned that he's in the race. Probably the easiest cut of all of them. Wingspan is kind of interesting because this is a 3-year-old for Aidan O'Brien, and just ran a monster race in the Filly and Mare Champion Stakes. Got an extremely high class rating, and now is coming back into this race off of 3 weeks rest, which is a little unusual for Aidan O'Brien. And I think it's kind of a case of strike while the iron's hot. The field isn't the greatest. But to me, horses who run that big, I have a lot of trouble betting back. And that's kind of the reasoning behind not including Wingspan. At 15-1, certainly the price is right. And, this horse could very well win this race. But I just think there's I think this horse is vulnerable coming off such a big effort. So to me, I'm not enthused by Wingspan. Rebels Romance won this race a couple years ago. Certainly has the back class, but is 6 years old. And, as we know, horses over 5 in the Breeders' Cup, I think, are 0 for 56. And if you look at his last couple races, not so great. Okay, he won a race in Germany, but, that's a major league step down in class from this race, let's face it. And the King George VI race, he ran a monster class number on Brisnet, if you follow. I think he got a 126. That's a huge number. And he can go to Germany and beat a subpar field. He's that good. But now you're going to step back up in class, and I just think there's a couple of things against him, and I really don't like this horse at 5-2. I think underneath you can certainly use him. He's too good not to, but I like others as a win candidate. Gold Phoenix is a horse for the course. He loves Del Mar. I believe he's 4 out of 6. He did finish fourth at Santa Anita last year in the turf. And he's on his home track, and the price is right at 15-1. You're probably going to get a lot better than that. I'm throwing him in just for underneath. No threat to win it, but he also, if you look at his running lines, this is a horse who has kind of a good race, bad race pattern this year, and he's sitting on a good one. So I'm going to throw him in there for the price. There goes Harvard. Again, ran in that John Henry race and got second, but I don't think that's saying much at all. And this horse just isn't good enough, and so he's a toss for me, and a pretty easy one. So looking at this field, to me, the defining characteristic is form. And it's also class to a degree, but I want horses who are coming into this race in good form. And JRB, Luxembourg, and Shahryar, I think, are all ones who are in good form coming in here. The others, there's a little hair on them for one reason or another. Emily Upjohn just had a disappointing year. Seems to maybe have leveled off a bit. Rebels Romance, again, I think maybe a little vulnerable coming off of such a monster effort to back. And the Americans, I mean, just they're not good enough. That's really the bottom line to it. So I settled on Shahryar. Do I have a great degree of confidence in that pick? No. But you're getting 10-1. You're getting a fresh horse who has run well in the Breeders' Cup prior and is 6 years old. That's true. So I'm a little bit of a hypocrite with this pick. But the other thing is that the price is pretty good as well. I think this is a wide open race, and there's a lot of ways to go. So I'm just going to try to sneak in some value. Looking at a wagering strategy, we'll bet Shahryar to win. Then we'll do an exacta key with Luxembourg and JRB. 3 on top with 4 and 5. Then we'll do a key box with 3 on top with 4 and 5. And then we're going to box 3, 4, and 5. Trifecta, we'll go 3 on top with 4, 5, 4, 5. Then we'll do one with 3 on top with 4, 5, with 2, 6, 11, and 12, all the later runners. And then, if you want to spread it out even further, you can go 3 on top with 2, 6, 11, 12 with 4, 5. I don't know that that's a bet I would do. I think this is the kind of race you just sort of have to plant your flag and hope for the best. It is a very tough race. So that's the turf. I hope our analysis helps you with your own wagering strategy. I wish you the best of luck, of course. That's going to be a really wild race, and there's a lot of ways to go. We'll just keep our fingers crossed on it. We've got more content coming. We've got the dirt and the turf mile as well as the sprint. So be on the lookout for those. We'll have those up today, and hopefully before the festivities start in the Breeders' Cup. If you like content like this, of course, please like and subscribe. And thanks to all of you who've recently come on board. So that's it from here. I'll talk to you soon. And until then, be well.